Rich on paper isn't rich. What you're seeing with all of the tariffs, and I'm not just talking about the tariffs in the US, so don't zero in on that. This is a bit of a problem everywhere. It's, now China wants to tariff Canada, Canada wants to tariff Mexico, Mexico wants to tariff, Great Britain. I mean, this is where all this is going. And tariffs, if you really break down what a tariff is, in its core, the core element of a tariff, it's that the currencies between these countries, whether it's the Argentinian, shitcoin, or the Japanese yen, or the Chinese, yuan, it doesn't matter what any of these, or the ruble, it doesn't make any difference. All of these currencies are losing value rapidly, and they're losing value at different rates. And that's what's causing all of these countries to want to create a bunch of tariffs back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. It isn't just the US. Americans get a little myopic, unfortunately, and we all do. Like Americans in particular are a little bit handicapped on this because our country is big. Like the land mass is huge, and we are able to live in this little bubble, right? We have relatively friendly neighbors to the south, if they won't fix their fence, but relatively friendly neighbors to the south, and neighbors to the north, the fence is falling down there too, and they won't fix that either. But there's no big wars or anything that are going on. There's no bodies being stacked up. You get my point? So, and we have two oceans, so we're able to live in this little bubble. And we forget that the rest of the world is having all kinds of problems right now. And it's because of their currencies are all falling apart. And this will continue to happen. All of these fiat currencies, a fiat currency, for those who don't know, is simply a currency conjured from nothing. Fiat comes from the Latin, and it means let it be, or let it be so, or it is so. That's what it means. It means it just sort of coalesces out of the ether. There's nothing really there that it's. You could almost say the word magic. I hesitate to use that term because it conjures the images of the supernatural, but there it is. So that's a fiat currency, and all these fiat currencies are failing everywhere. And so every country is trying to maneuver themselves because the music is slowing. Okay, to use the analogy. Okay. It's starting to slow down a bit, and it's going to stop at any time. In fact, actually, there was just a comment. I can't remember who it was. One of the new secretary people that's been appointed that points out that there's probably not going to be a weaning period. We're not going to the American people aren't going to be able to be weaned off of government spending. If you follow me on the other platforms, you know that I ask this question periodically. If government spending, this is in the US, I'm just talking to Americans for the moment here. In the US, if government spending were to go to zero, beginning right now, like as of this very moment, government spending, all government spending and government money going anywhere goes to zero right now, how many so-called private companies would be bankrupt in a year? Probably all of them. That's how bad this is. Very few. There's so little private sector economy left that's why we have this is where this confusion comes from with my commie followers and my capitalist followers that all argue with each other. And it's like, dude, you guys really need to sit down and have dinner together and stop using the isms. Start comparing notes with one another, and you're going to find out what I found out many years ago, which is that this is all fake on both sides. There is no way to perpetuate any of this. Giant government, for my commie followers, cannot continue in perpetuity. It eventually is going to fall apart, right? That's why you can't have the so-called free healthcare, because somebody has to pay for it, which means that eventually you'll inflate the currency and it will just collapse. There it is. This is the same is true for my capitalist people. You cannot have endless growth forever. Real capitalism, if you want to use that word, and I use that term advisedly, would be, oh, look, you've run out of growth, now you're going to go bankrupt. That's what's supposed to be happening to these giant companies, but it's not. They keep getting bailed out. I know I have said this 50 times, At least. If I've said 50 times, I've said it 100 times in all of the work that I do here, that this is where this stuff goes. And this is why insurance companies are doing absolutely everything they can to not pay out claims, and why they're spiking your rates everywhere. This is why your taxes everywhere are going up, why they're constantly, for homeowners out there, they're constantly reevaluating reassessing your property, and they're charging you more money. That's why they're doing this. They're going broke everywhere. It's why they're sending out swarms of police to try and generate revenue and write tickets for everything in the world. It's why they're doing that kind of stuff. They're going broke. They're running out of everybody else's money. On top of that, you have a declining population. You've heard me talk about it on many occasions. You have a declining population as well. This is true. It's just math. You've heard me say it. The math is catching up, and it doesn't happen all at once. It does one of these, one of these things, right? Where it's like, logarithmic, slowly and then very fast. We're coming up on the very fast part. Like that's why you're seeing, it's why it feels like everything is going faster and faster and faster. It's because it is. It's rapidly, people are running out of money, and the scams aren't working anymore. Nobody's buying into any more of the scams. How many emails per day do you get that you just constantly delete them because there's like 50 of them are scams? Yeah. None of those are working anymore. So even the people running the scams can't get any money now. So therefore they can't go to the clubs. They can't do any of that stuff. That's which is affecting the clubs, which is on and on and on. You get how this works? That's what's happening as this all declines as a direct result of all of this. Sooner or later, you run out of everybody else's money, and it doesn't make any difference what ism you want to call it. It really doesn't, because both will end the same way. And it's because of central banking. That is the top of the proverbial pyramid. Central banking is the problem. If it has a central bank, I'm doing this video primarily for new people, because a lot of you already heard me say this, but if you have a central bank, it is doomed to have this outcome, regardless of the country and regardless of what ism you are calling it. Regardless, it doesn't make any difference if you call it capitalism, communism, socialism, fascism. It doesn't make any difference. If it has a central bank, it's going to have this outcome right now, what you're seeing in the Western world. And I'm talking to the people who speak English. Hopefully somebody will translate some of this stuff. I realize I have a personality like anybody else, and I realize that my personality is like 20 grit sandpaper for a lot of folks. I get that, okay? But some of the stuff, it really affects you, and it affects your money. And that's what you're just going to have to get past. You're going to have to get past the way that I say something and understand it, apply it to the money, because that's really what it comes down to. You can hate me all you want, but when it comes right down to like learning about why all of this is happening, everything out here, why all of this is fading quickly, and it's just going to speed up, that's why. So, tariffs themselves aren't a bad idea, but the reason tariffs used to be really pretty small, and they were in gold. They were in hard currency. And it was only because so many countries wanted to have access to that market, and the market that was here, for example, in the US, again, I can only speak from an American perspective, is that you did want to at least somewhat protect your people in your country from labor dumping. That you kind of wanted to do that. You didn't want to have a bunch of companies or countries that would enslave their population to make stuff cheaper, and because you didn't want to support that, right? I mean, think about that for just a moment on a human level. Take the money aspect out of it for just a minute here. How many of us really want to support a bunch of child slave labor? I would suggest that probably most people don't, or at least I would hope you don't. I would hope that because I am barely a decent human being on this fucking planet. I would hope that some of you are at least better than me. And even I don't want that. I may have a lot of problems, but I don't have that problem. So no, I would prefer that we not have a bunch of slaves doing all this work.